Here now, Dan Brouillette, former Energy Secretary. Dan, always great to see you. I want to pick up where Edward left off, because to me, when I think about the SPR and tapping it, this is about hurricanes. It's about war. It's about force majeure and complete emergencies. That's not what we have on our hands here. What we have is a president whose approval rating is dropping, that's messed up so much policy, including energy policy. We're seeing these gas prices rise. And 50 million barrels a day, to Phil's point, isn't enough to even fix it. It's not a drop in the bucket. Your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Jackie, for having me. You're exactly right. It's about emergencies, and importantly, Jackie, it's about an emergency related to supply. That's what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is there for. It's to help the nation and get the nation through any disruption of supply. Unfortunately, though, what we face here in America is not a supply crunch. Supply is not the issue. Just 24 months ago, we were the largest producer of oil and gas in the world, larger than Russia and larger than Saudi Arabia. What we face today is a regulatory burden and an environment that discourages investment in fossil fuels, and it discourages production here in the United States. So the president has options well beyond the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. If they'd simply follow the playbook for success that was left to them by the previous administration, we could increase production here in the United States, and gas prices would come down over a period of time.
And you're 100% right. At the peak of oil production in this country, over 13 million barrels a day, just roughly 18 months ago, or a little bit longer than that. So we have a 2 million barrel delta, if you will. That's what our production has gone down. We could easily make up the deficit for the increase in demand we're seeing, because people are using, say, their cars more than they are public transportation. Fine. Okay, we have it here. But that's not what President Biden wants to see.
No, apparently not. I mean, some of the policy decisions that were made early in the administration, the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline, the latest conversation about raising taxes on U.S. corporations, which makes it less likely that people will invest here in the United States as a low-cost part of the world in which to do business. Those types of policies discourage production of fossil fuels. They discourage production of energy generally. And it's that lack of production, that lack of supply that we could make up in the marketplace that's driving the scarcity in the marketplace, and which continues to put pressure on pricing of refined products like gasoline and diesel, as well as natural gas.
You know, you and I have talked about this offline, but essentially as a reporter who energy was my beat, watching what the Trump administration did to tap into production in this country, make us number one, make sure that we were not relying on OPEC anymore. To watch this for me has been a slow and painful train wreck, and I can only imagine how you feel as part of the team who fixed everything, to watch it unravel in less than a year. Your thoughts?
Well, that's exactly right. For years and years and years, the United States was the swing producer, what's known as a swing producer. We actually controlled, to some degree, through our open market processes, the price of oil around the world. We were producing, as you mentioned, 13 million barrels per day. And today we've turned that back around. We've given the reins of the oil market back to OPEC. And, you know, the president's actions today strike me as a little bit curious. You know, his outreach to China, his outreach to the UK, his outreach to Japan. It looks like some in Washington might want to create a cartel of their own to compete with OPEC, and I'm not quite sure that's the long-term answer for America.
You bring up a great point there. I raised an eyebrow when I heard there was coordination with China. We can't even coordinate with the OPEC producers. He's trying to beg them to fix the problem. Now you're working with China, who has established itself as an enemy of the United States, to fix this problem. But it really comes back, Dan, to Americans, to how much money they're taking home in their paychecks, to what's sticking to their bones after they pay their bills, after they go to the grocery store and pay higher prices there, and after they pay higher prices at the pump, after they pay more to heat their homes this winter. This is having an impact on people, and this is not a president that's fixing it. You heard in that soundbite, he pivoted and said that his green agenda is creating jobs. We haven't seen that happen either. I mean, this is hurting the country, and it's hurting Americans.
It really is, Jackie. I think at the end of the day, what is lost in this conversation is the simple fact everyone is for green jobs, everyone's for renewable energy, everyone is for all forms of energy. The challenge we face today, however, is that renewable energy is intermittent and it's variable, and it's dependent upon things like natural gas and nuclear power. Without those forms of baseload energy, renewable power doesn't exist today. I'll just give you one quick fact. Today, a Purdue scientist told me, a Purdue engineer actually told me, that the best batteries that we have available provide only 1/10 of the energy density as some of the fossil fuels that are available to us today. Only 1/10. So what that means in the long run is that this green energy is, in fact, without the subsidies, perhaps more expensive than natural gas and more expensive than other forms of energy. And that's driving the inflation that you see, and it's going to drive all the pricing that you just talked about.
It is, Dan, and you make a great point there, because when you watch gas prices go up at the clip that they've been rising, all of a sudden the costs start to look, not as disparate, if you will, but you don't realize that the gas prices going up is artificial. It's being caused by an agenda, and that's what Americans really need to know. Dan Brouillette, great to see you. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you, Jackie.